of silence. Mrs. Brooks.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Mr. Velasquez, if you would call the roll, please.
Article Huntington.
Present.
Kimberly Jackson. Ryan Colton.
I'm here.
Julius Wiegand.
Present.
Marie Davies.
Present.
Renee James.
Here.
Michelle Brooks.
Here.
Edward Kennedy.
Here.
Frederick McCoy.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Mr. Velasquez. Mr. Gagnon, any additions or deletions?
Good afternoon, Jeff Gagnon, Planning and Zoning Administrator. For additions and deletions, I just wanted to let the board know that the color elevations associated with the blue project have been updated, and that was to revise the fact that the sphere that was previously proposed in order to meet the city's codes need to be eliminated, so the new elevation shows that, and I will get into greater detail during the presentation. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Gagnon. Item number 4, disclosure by board members. Any disclosure? Actually, I'll begin with myself. Ms. Davis?
Yes, I had a meeting with the representatives of the Blue yesterday.
Any other disclosure?
I also did.
Mr. Kennedy?
Mr. Chairman, I forgot to set something on the addition and deletion that my name was not on the attendance group because I came in late that afternoon. And my name is not on there, but I was present.
Just a moment, Mr. Wiggum, on that. We're going to finish the disclosure and we can go back. Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, I also met with representatives of the board.
And I additionally met with representatives of the group project from Riviera Beach Investors. Any other disclosure? Adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any opposition? Hearing none, show the agenda adopted. Moving back to item number 3. Mr. Wiggum, you're recognized.
Yes, my name was left off the attendance list, and I was here, I was present, and I know I did come in late, so it was just an error, but I just want to let you know my name's not on there in case someone asked, where were you at that meeting?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think it's been at least indicated in the minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Moving forward to item number 5, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Move that the minutes be accepted with all necessary corrections, if there be any.
It's been moved by Mr. Hamilton, second by Mrs. Brooks.
No, Mrs. Brooks.
I'm sorry.
James.
Mrs. James, excuse me. Is there any objection? Hearing none, show those minutes adopted. Item number 6, no unfinished business, new business.
Good afternoon, board. Once again, Jeff Gagnon, Planning and Zoning Administrator. Tonight we have a few items of new business. Under letter A is an application from Riviera Beach Investors LLC Site Plan 15-03. Requesting site plan approval to develop 3.23 acres of vacant land at 3730 North Ocean Drive, known by parcel control number 56 43 42 26 02 001 0000 in order to construct a 58-unit, 18-story condominium, 220 feet in height, positioned westward of the 1997 Coastal Construction Control Line, located within the Resort Hotel RH zoning district. So I'll go through the PowerPoint presentation at this point in time. For an aerial view of the property, 3730 North Ocean Drive appears in the middle of the screen. 3800 North Ocean Drive, which is the Marriott property, is directly to the north, and 3700 North Ocean Drive is to the south, which is the Hilton. Just for orientation, north and south along North Ocean Drive, Morse Boulevard and Bimini Lane are to the west, and of course the Atlantic Ocean is to the east. Additionally, it's important to note that there are two separate parcels actually that are directly north of 3730 North Ocean Drive. They are beach access for both the Yacht Harbor Manor and Palm Beach Isles. So I just wanted to indicate that that's been recognized and this development will not negatively impact those access areas whatsoever. And any landscaping that could encroach within that area over time would have to be maintained by this property owner, 3730. So again, this is the aerial view, and this is a color rendering that kind of gives you a better understanding of the flow on the site. Entrance would obviously occur through North Ocean Drive. There's a parking garage area, 2 levels in fact. There's an entrance here as well as above. The pool area is completely west of the 1997 Coastal Construction Control Line. And that was a very important fact. It's something that the Planning and Zoning Board and City Council has been working diligently to ensure that development occurs west of that Coastal Construction Control Line. This proposal does satisfy that. Everything east of that Coastal Construction Control Line is either dune, which will be replanted dune area, or just simply beach walkway, which is typical access through the dune area. So this is a more detailed rendition of the site plan. There is a cut line that runs through the middle of the building, which the site plan would flow from the east down to the west of the property itself. Again, the coastal construction control lines are shown on the site plan. This is the 1997 coastal construction control line, and this is the previous 1979 line. So again, you can see the development is moved westward of that line. So this is the full landscape package proposed. The buffer areas are extremely well landscaped. It is a narrow site, there are site constraints. However, staff did have concern about buffers, so the developer did propose not only very lush landscape buffers, but also some dune restoration, which is located, this is the difficult cut sheet. Let me go back. So there is some dune restoration elements proposed as well, which is going to enhance the existing dune area. And these are the color elevations that were amended in your packet. There were a few minor changes. The first is the architectural view from every angle of the 17th floor. Instead of having a penthouse suite on the 17th and 18th floor, It's now being shown just on the 18th floor. However, this does not impact the total number of units offered. There'll still be 58 units, so there won't be any impact to parking counts or things of that nature. So here are both the west and east elevation of the project. This would be the view from North Ocean Drive, and this would be from the ocean side. And this is the south elevation of the project. You can see the parking garage ramp from North Ocean Drive here, the 2 levels of parking, and residential units north of there. The main building itself is 200 feet in height, and then in order to hide the architectural elements were used in order to hide the mechanical equipment on the roof area to make it as pleasing as possible to the eye. But again, the spire that was previously proposed in this area was removed due to the fact that the height restrictions within that zoning district only allow building and architectural features up to 220 feet high. I just wanted to touch upon a few elements in the staff report. Again, it's a 58-unit condominium. It's not a resort hotel or anything of that nature, even though the zoning district would potentially allow that use. So from staff's perspective and the city's perspective, this is something that the city is in favor of. It's going to be residential use, ownership of the units itself. So that's a positive. Additionally, the developer did work rigorously to ensure that the development was behind that 1997 coastal construction control line. It was something that, through multiple iterations, was worked through, but they were able to get something that worked on site. Again, as previously stated, the Marriott to the north and Hilton is directly to the south. And roadways directly to the east are Morse Boulevard and Bimini Lane. So in conclusion of the staff analysis, this proposal adheres to zoning regulations as well as a comprehensive plan. Levels of service such as water, sewer, electric are all provided to the site currently. They're available. Landscaping will be installed per code. And for parking and traffic, our code would require 116 parking spaces and 131 are provided. As far as vehicle trips per day, it's actually under the threshold that would require a full study for traffic, so only a traffic statement is needed, and there are currently 406 vehicles per day associated with the traffic statement. And through the process itself, the construction process, the number of jobs would be roughly 125 people when it's in full swing under construction. For permanent positions, it would be roughly 5 to 10 permanent positions. That would be associated with the gatehouse, other service uses such as that. And see, the applicant is here tonight to answer any questions.
Members, any question for Mr. Gagnon of the presentation? Only questions.
I have one.
Mr. Canuti?
Jeff, just curious, the answers that you received from the applicant to your questions, were they satisfactory?
As far as the staff review process?
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's ever a concern that staff isn't comfortable with, then more than likely the project would get to the planning and zoning board. There are often staff comments that are satisfied prior to building permit approval. So there are things that staff offers up almost, in the future you'll have to satisfy X, Y, Z. So as long as there's an acknowledgement of those conditions or factors that need to be satisfied, that's what staff is most concerned with. So we're happy with the responses we received.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the presentation? Only questions. Mrs. Davis.
I'm not certain if this should be directed to you or not, Jeff. Could you there was some concern about the traffic. And could you explain a little bit about the TCEA, the Transportation Concurrency Exception area,
Sure.
and how this is
So
involved?
the TCEA, which is the Traffic Concurrency Exemption Area, what that is, it's a traffic overlay, if you will, that exists on an identical area as the CRA overlay. So the intent of the TCEA is to enable potentially denser or more intense development within the CRA zone itself. So this project actually falls outside of the TCEA, and the traffic standards that this project has to adhere to, the city code has a threshold of 500 trips per day as the cutoff point between just providing a traffic statement, which is basically saying these are the trips that are anticipated by this project. And I think this development was about 20% less than the threshold of 500, being that it was around 400 trips per day. If it is above that 500, that's when a full traffic study is required.
Any other questions of the presentation by Mr. Gagnon before we allow the applicant the opportunity to offer any additional? Hearing none, I want to take the one public comment that I do have. Gerald Ward.
How could have predicted that?
Good evening, Gerald Ward, 3930 North Ocean, one door north of the Ocean Reef Park. I guess to start with, and like always, the lights in this place are horrible, but Mr. Gagnon acknowledged that the plans and the staff report, more importantly, did not correctly identify that I am an adjacent property owner to the north. Everybody in Palm Beach Isles owns an undivided interest in the 4-foot strip, which is a beach access by deed and by plat. So that needs to be corrected in the staff materials by the time it goes to council. The project is 58 units when first put in, went to a much better, we revised the zoning to go to RH, and I think Jeff is absolutely wrong. We are running the city into the ground when we want to put residential in versus some sort of commercial type businesses. We're not going to have any place to go in the city at the rate we're getting rid of commercial businesses. And so the beachside needs that to be viable. You can't just run a residential area. Ocean Ridge is a great example of running out good businesses. So that said, it's just not a good idea for this project. The committee minutes are really not minutes. They are a recitation of counting the project, but not recording people's objections that did occur that night. The west of the coastal construction control line, that's another extortion, bad deal. The coastal construction control line is a state-adopted line. It is not to be used as a setback line. So this concept is extremely poor and may get the city into money out of its coffers. Traffic, none of these condos on the beachside ever produce any significant traffic. So that's not an issue, even though people come in and talk about it often. What I really am concerned about is truck and commercial vehicle, industrial vehicle access. He talked nothing about that. The report has nothing in it. And we have an abortion to the north where we devised a system of an intersection with Bimini and somewhere in the CDEC process, it became converted to 2 driveways and no truck accommodations. So you need to probe that before you let this go forward.
Having no other public comments, does the applicant choose to offer anything additional?
Mr. Chair, for the record, George Gentile, President Gentile Glass Holloway O'Matney. We are the planners. We have our team here. We're glad to answer any questions. I have a full presentation, but your staff did a great job, and we'll be here to answer any questions that the commissioners have.
Members, any questions of the applicant? Ms. Davis?
Yes, I have 2 questions. What plans are in place to keep down the dust, the dirt from neighbors? I know you can only do so much, but is there fencing and
There'll be security. There'll be fencing to keep the sand from blowing. We have to protect the dune area as well. There'll also be some other mitigating items that will be done in regards to spray down of any dusty areas or whatever. As Mr. Gagnon said, we will, even through the construction, ensure that those property owners that have the right and ownership of the pedestrian access way on the north side of the project will continue to have that through the construction. As well as after, and we've agreed to maintain the landscape so there's absolute no obstruction to that.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question, Mr. Ward made some comments about, I don't know if it was access into the property of commercial vehicles, whether it was height or distance.
Well,
it wasn't clear.
He made a comment regarding large truck and industrial truck traffic. This isn't an industrial site. Your fire rescue people have looked at it and they feel comfortable that there's access for their emergency vehicles, which is really the most important item. And we feel it meets all the turning radiuses. And in a project like this, there'll be limited requirements for the larger trucks. It'll be through move-in, which doesn't happen every single day. It will happen when the condominium's done, but they will accommodate that on the site.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other members? I'll take a stab at it. The March meeting minutes from the public meeting indicates there's no guardhouse. So
It has been revised. Yeah, there is a code.
I think at the time the proposal did not have a guardhouse, and I think that the development team went back and looked at it, reconsidered, and saw value in having that guardhouse. Sure, yeah, it creates an additional job. It's just really for security purposes, so it has been added on to the site.
Sure, okay. Not a big deal. Hearing no other member comments, Mr. Canuti.
Yeah, just make a couple of comments. On one is the fact that I think it's important for everybody to know that the density of this project at 58 units is significantly less than the density of the original project, which was, I think, just under 100 units.
112.
112.
Yes.
So I think that's a big positive sign, and I think moving it beyond the coastal construction line, I know it's not a setback line, but it is kind of an informal indication of where things need to be built. So I think those are 2 positives on this project. No other comment?
Any other members? Just one question for Mr. Gagnon. When did the city adopt a moratorium on the coastal construction? On the setback,
I don't remember the exact moratorium date. It was, I want to say, well over a year ago, but the first reading of that ordinance has gone to City Council and was approved, and the second reading is scheduled for the May 6th City Council meeting, I believe.
Okay.
Mr. Gang, that moratorium, though, was for property north of the park?
The moratorium ended up encompassing all of Singer Island for the most part. So,
Okay.
but the intent of the moratorium was to allow staff time in order to prepare language. And I guess what hasn't directly been said is that this development proposal being west of that 1997 coastal construction control line adheres to the ordinance that's being proposed. So that was a really important element that we wanted to make sure was coinciding.
Okay. Any other comments by members? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the application?
I'll make a motion that we approve the application as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. It was moved by Mrs. Davis, second by Mr. Canuti. Mr. Velasquez, if you'll call the question.
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Gillis Wiggum,
Yes.
Maury Davis,
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Sheriff Brooks,
Yes.
Edward Kennedy,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy,
Yes.
and anyone voting, motion approved.
Thank you. Moving forward to
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
item number 7, letter B.
Yes, letter B under new business is an application from Alltech Industries Incorporated requesting site plan approval to develop 6.13 acres of vacant land on property known as PCN 56 43 42 31 05 000 0030. Also PCN 56 43 42 31 05 000 0040. Also parcel 56 43 42 31 05 000 0050. And finally, parcel 56 43 42 31 05 000 0060, which are located on the west side of Interstate Park Road West, south of Blue Heron Boulevard, and west of Garden Road, for a 24,216 square foot truck repair and maintenance facility, as well as an accessory office located within the general industrial zoning district. At this time, I would ask Mario Velasquez, our senior planner, to make a presentation on this site plan application.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mario Velasquez, Senior Planner. Tonight we'll be going over the Alltech Industries Inc. Site plan application for Alltech Industries Riviera Beach. It's an industrial project with consisting of a 24,000 plus square feet building with 17 service bays, some accessory office, park wash. We'll go over the location, get familiarized with the area, and we'll conclude with a staff report. As you can see on the screen, the blue squares represent the location of the city in reference to the boundary of the city. And we can tell it's along 95 on the west side of the city. As we zoom in, we can clearly see that it's west of Garden Road, north of MLK. This property it's currently vacant, unimproved, consists of 4 parcels. They are all vacant. They're totaling a little bit over 6 acres. Their current zoning is general industrial, and future land use is industrial. For north and south neighbors, we have industrial on the north, currently truck sales, and industrial on the south. They currently it's a vintage car restoration, Porsche to be exact. On the east side, we have two properties. Commons Power South, which is a project that came before the board probably 2 years ago. It's also a truck maintenance facility, and another lot that is currently vacant, unimproved. And on the west side, we have I-95. On the screen, we have the site plan, just to get an idea on where things are going to be placed. On the north side, we have some parking for customers, followed by some loading area, the building, the office. Then we have more parking and testing area, and we have the retention on the south. Landscape plan, this is just an index showing that the site is well landscaped, buffered, which landscape around the property, around the parking area, the office, and it all complies with the code of ordinances. Some elevations just to get an idea on what the building is going to look like. The district regulates the maximum height to be 50 feet. They're currently at 35, so they're okay within the regulations. And now we'll present the staff analysis for the record. This company is currently operating at 2570 Old Okeechobee Road. It's approximately south of Okeechobee Boulevard, west of 95. And they're planning to build a new location in Riviera Beach. They're proposing to construct a 24,216 square foot truck repair and maintenance facility with accessory office on a 6.13 acre industrial site. This is composed of 4 parcels. They're going to be legally linked by unity of title to avoid separation later on or selling different parcels, so it's going to be one property. The proposed facility will be used to service and maintain lifts, cranes, bucket trucks, motors, and trailers, among others. This proposed use will generate 8 new jobs in addition to the 16 current positions, which range from $35,000 to $110,000. It has been roughly calculated to be a $4 million investment, and that could potentially generate to the city over $40,000 in tax revenue. For zoning regulations, the proposed use complies with the city's land development regulations for the general industrial zoning district. It's also consistent with the comprehensive plan's industrial future land use designation. The proposed project is also compatible with the surrounding parcels, as I previously stated, they're industrial. For levels of service, city services such as roads, water, sewer, and garbage collection will be available to the site. Landscaping, the staff feels that the proposed landscape plan is compatible with the city's land development regulations. And also adequate parking has been proposed in accordance with the city's land development regulations. Now for the record, I will conclude with the recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the site plan application to construct a 24,216 square foot truck repair and maintenance facility with accessory office on 4 parcels, approximately 6.13 acres, with the following conditions. Number 1, a 2-year landscaping performance bond for 110% of the value of landscaping and irrigation shall be required before the certificate of occupancy is issued. Number 2, construction must be initiated within 18 months of the effective date of the approved resolution in accordance with Section 3160B of the Code of Ordinances. Number 3, all future advertising must state that the development of this business is located in the city of Riviera Beach, and that's what's been proposed. I'll take Riviera Beach. Number 4, a unity of title for the 4 parcels is required before issuance of the certificate of use by a building official. So this is the legal document that will pretty much combine the 4 parcels into one. If the board has any questions, the applicant is present and we'll try to answer it the most that we can.
Mr. Velasquez, I have a question of your staff analysis. Could you go back a couple slides? And I think it relates to the actual jobs and the proposed revenue right there. The proposed revenue from this business. How do we get that information? Is that provided by the applicant? At least the jobs has to be provided by the applicant. But
that was provided by the applicant, and it was also calculated. The millage rate for the city, well, millage rate is 23.6. Out of that, 8.9, 520% comes to the city. So
I'm sorry. Can you repeat
it's
that?
a calculation of the, having a $4 million investment, improvement of the lots and the actual property. 8.9 points, which is it equals to like almost 1%. That's the revenue for the city.
Well, I
That's
guess
about the jobs.
Yes.
My-
The information from the job information, the salary, that all came from the applicant.
well, you're speaking of $4 million investment. That doesn't account for the actual assessed value or even the fair market value of the property.
That's just a rough calculation, it could be more.
It could be a lot less as well, right?
That's something that the applicant maybe can state, can clarify.
Just point of information, so that you're talking about the taxable value?
Right.
Because what staff did in order to come up with it's not an exact number, it's just a ballpark figure, that was based off of existing facilities in the area that were recently built. For example, Cummings, which recently was constructed just north, we were able to look at the size of the parcel, the amount of square feet, and from that, come up with a general assessment of what the yearly tax revenue would be for the state.
Sure, but my question was, is it based off of the assessed value or is it based off of the investment? Because it sounded like, he was giving me numbers related to the investment. I mean, is that...
The investment includes the improvement on the property and buying the property as well. Because they...
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And the jobs are estimates provided by the applicant as well?
Correct.
Okay, any other members?
Yes, I have a couple of things.
Ms. Davis?
What does Alltech actually do? Do they just do maintenance and repair of trucks?
I think that's better to be answered by the applicant.
Thank you, Mario. Josh Nichols, agent for the applicant. Thank you again for having us before the board this evening. Just to kind of quickly answer your question, yes, they have 16 service centers throughout the country. And this service center is currently operating in West Palm Beach. They're excited to be able to move to a larger facility and increase their number of employees. Basically, their primary use of this facility is repair and maintenance of more of the fleet vehicles. You can see some pictures over here, augers, the bucket trucks. And they don't do repair and maintenance of, say, the body of the truck or the chassis type, where the engine components. It's more the booms, the hydraulic pieces, all the specialized equipment that is on those large vehicles. So that's their primary business.
And do they store oil and things like grease and that sort of thing on the premises?
Yeah, I mean, they'll have hydraulic fluid, any of those types of fluids that are necessary to repair the machines. Correct.
And then if there is a problem, maybe there's some sort of special tanks or...
Yeah, everything has to meet certain, environmental requirements. So if it's dual containments or, the cement barriers around those tanks, everything would have to meet state and federal requirements.
Okay, and then one more question. What type of landscaping do you propose? Are those trees, hedges, and how tall are they?
All of the above. We have trees, hedges, ground cover. The city has a maximum amount of sod that you can put down. So we have some ground cover there, sod, and then the trees, I believe, are at 12 feet of installation. So, and there's a note, I think we're required 178 trees and we're proposing 206. So we're actually going above and beyond. We're preserving over more than 50% of the oaks that are on the site. And it was previously cleared before, but what has regrown, we're preserving over 50% of those trees.
So just in very general terms, what about is there any green space?
Yes, there's a preserve area, a dedicated preserve area. You'll see on the site plan at the southwest corner where it says LP3. That's dry detention, but just to the southwest of that is preserve area, so that's green space. And then everywhere that you see the little circles representing the landscaping, that's all green space. And in front and around the office buildings, office portion of the warehouse structure is also green space. So we exceed the minimum required green space for the site.
All right, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Members, questions of the presentation or the applicant? Just question. Hearing none. We'll go to public comments. Joe Ward.
Good evening again, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway. I get the feeling I'll probably be the only public again. This project is one that probably the city and the planning board of the 80s has expected to come forward a long time ago. It is one of the most visible sites. It's 4 lots, and the type of business that's being enticed to come here is certainly the type of business that supports the city. The 1,000 acres of industrial is one of the biggest helps to the financial stability of this city over the past 25 years. So I am very pleased to see that we finally got somebody. If you take a look at the aerial, which is about 3 or 4 pages back, you'll see it's one of the 2 vacant parcels over there in Interstate Park that just had ownerships that didn't cause it to get scooped up back in the 80s when we used to have 4 to 6 applications like this a month before this board. 2 things come to mind. If you look at the perspectives, there is no advertising, no signage. One of the things that people get screwed in this town by is the CDEC coming in and not allowing a decent sign. So before you go to council, you need to have a sit down if you have signage desires. And then the second item is if you look at the fire department comments. We often used to approve projects in the 80s, and the last thing after they were approved by the board would say, now, note the fact that there wasn't any fire comments. And fire rescue has no additional comments at this time. So that's the second item that needs to be addressed, and we, back in the 80s and 90s, had an exceptionally good inspection group of the fire department. I haven't this century spent a lot of time with them, but I always get worried when there's comments like that they're going to come back later on. So this is the best project I've seen in certainly this decade, probably. And it can be a very good asset if we fill in the other side of the street.
Having no other public comments, members wishing to comment on the project. Mr. Canuti.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome Altec, and glad you made the decision to come here. The tax revenue is nice, but I guess my calculation is it's probably close to $1 million in payroll at that site too. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Any other members? Mr. Colton.
Just one, it was brought up in public comment, and I had written down signage. Signage height, is there, or will there be a limit on a certain height if there's signage? You know, is there a sign that you put up where you can see from 95, or is it just a sign in front of the establishment?
I love the site plan. It's kind of small, but on the site plan we can see on the east side of the property, which is the front of the office, they have proposed a lineage sign. At the moment, we don't have exact details. We usually get a 6x7. That's what we recommend. But when they come to apply for a sign permit, it will be regulated by the code of ordinances.
Any other members wishing to comment before we call the question? Hearing no other comments, is there a motion to approve the application?
Motion. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
A motion that we approve this item, item B on the agenda.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Brooks, second by Mr. Colton. Mr. Velasquez, is your call to question?
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Julius Wiggum,
Yes.
Maria Davis,
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Michelle Bruce,
Yes.
Edward Kennedy,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy.
Yes.
Unanimous vote, motion approved.
Item number 7C.
Tonight, under new business, letter C, it's an application from Port of Palm Cold Storage Incorporated, which is site plan 1502, requesting site plan approval to develop 2.61 acres of vacant lands on parcel known by PCN 56, 43, 42, 31, 27, 000, 0032, which is located north of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and west of Avenue U, for a two-story, 55,755 square foot warehouse building with a 9,350 square foot office area on the second floor of that building, located within the limited industrial IL zoning district. At this time, I'd like to ask our principal planner, DeAndre Spradley, to come up and give a presentation on the site plan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. DeAndre Spradley, Principal Planner. Just to give you an overview of the project, the applicant is requesting a site plan approval to develop 2.61 acres of vacant land. And they're going to build a two-story, 55,755 square feet warehouse building with 9,350 square foot of office space on the second floor. It is located on the north side of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, west of Avenue U. This here is just a general site location of where it's located at. The area there in red is where the parcel is. This is the aerial of the map showing the surrounding uses and the current condition of the property. To the north, there are industrial uses separated by a canal. It also has limited industrial IL zoning as well as industrial future land use. To the south, there are industrial uses. There you have limited industrial IL zoning and industrial future land use. To the east, there's a City of Riviera Beach Special Utility District facility, Utility Districts U, zoning, and future land use. Both of those is actually under the utilities future land use. To the west, there's industrial uses as well, limited industrial IL zoning, and industrial future land use. The subject parcel has limited industrial IL and industrial future land use. The warehouse space will be for refrigerated food cold storage. Staff analysis, this particular project is consistent with and compatible to the city's comprehensive plan, as well as the land development regulations. There are city services such as road, water, sewer, and garbage collection currently available to the site. There's adequate parking that has been proposed by the applicant. There were no objections from departmental staff such as police, fire, utilities, public works, building, city engineer. This project is an expansion of the existing city-based business located at 1968 West 9th Street. The company Port of Palm Cold Storage has been operated in the city for over 18 years. The new facility, they plan on hiring 5 additional local employees. This is the elevation of the actual, what the building will look like. The colors there, like gray. And you can see the office space on the 2nd floor there. Truck bays will be in the front. Staff is recommending the board to consider approving the proposed site plan application with the following conditions. A 2-year landscaping performance bond for 110% of the value of landscaping and irrigation shall be required before the certificate of occupancy is issued. Construction must be initiated within 18 months of the effective date of the resolution once it goes over to City Council. All future advertisement must state that the development is located within the city of Riviera Beach. Fees and penalties in accordance with City Code Section 31-554 will be levied against the property owner and our business for violation of this condition. At this time, I can open the floor to any comments. The applicant is here to address any of the board's questions.
Members, any questions of the presentation?
Yes, I have a question. Could you go to the last slide? Is there sort of peculiar, we've never, at least I don't remember, requiring that future advertising must state the developments in Riviera Beach? I thought we always did that. I mean, is that a problem? And
I'll let Jeff.
Yeah, the conditions of approval that we described for this project and also the previous project for Altec, those are more or less a boilerplate condition that our city codes already require. So the advertising ordinance is already in place. However, we found it beneficial to put it on the approval resolution. That way it's very clear and certain on the actual resolution itself.
okay, thanks.
Any other members? Mrs. Brooks. Ms. Brooks.
Just one question. I'm not sure. The front of the building is facing.
MLK is also known as West
Okay,
Street.
I just want to be sure. Okay.
Mr. Colton.
Yeah, I had the same question because it was curious how it said West 8th Street and that street has been renamed. What's the address, 8th Street or MLK? And my other question, one more or two more.
Okay.
I know we're requiring companies to advertise Riviera Beach. What's the recourse if they don't? And the third question is, what's going to happen to their old building when they move out from 9th Street? What's happening to that building?
The third question, I will let the applicant address that.
Recourse as far as violation of the advertisement ordinance?
Yeah.
It's question 2, I believe. There's specific guidelines within the Code of Ordinances itself. It's, I believe, up to $500 per day of violation. There could be additional fees and penalties that are specified within the code, but it's all outlined within the ordinance itself.
And what's going to be the address, 8th Street or MLK? Based on what this these drawings say.
Unfortunately, the wording and the naming of the streets kind of used interchangeably. But MLK Boulevard is what our addressing will be. I believe that's what the property appraiser's website also recognizes the parcel as. So it'll be MLK Boulevard.
All right.
And if you like, I can get the applicant to come up and address
Yeah,
that
what's
third
going to
question.
happen to that older building?
Good evening. For the record, Todd McLeod with McLeod McCarthy and Associates, the civil engineers for the project. And thank you for having us here tonight. And we have Mr. Michael Drew, the owner of the proposed facility. He does have an existing facility in the city, and this is an expansion, so he'll be keeping the existing facility running. This will just be additional expansion space for his business, but I'm sure he could go into detail if you had any specific questions.
Any other members?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. For staff. On the staff comments, it was we proposed building setbacks of 5 feet, and then the response was that the setback has been increased to meet the LDC, and the MEHOP is no longer proposed. So it was initially proposed and now withdrawn.
That is correct.
Okay. And I assume on the next item it was the same thing? The building is $57,405?
That is correct.
Okay, so they adjusted that and then withdrew the MEHOP.
That's correct.
Okay. On utility district had 11 different issues that they addressed. Have all of those been satisfactorily?
Yes, sir, they have been addressed.
Okay. My final question was from the police department. I don't recall us ever asking for evacuation plan, cost recovery use, hazmat response, primary and secondary contact, and identification of and location of hazardous combustibles. I'm assuming that that commentary from the police is because of the chemicals used in the refrigeration?
They didn't give us an explanation of why they provided the comments, but they did. The applicant did address those comments.
Okay. This is refrigeration, not freezing. Is that correct?
That is
Both? Okay. Yeah. So those 5 items from police were addressed?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. I have no other questions.
Members, any other questions of the presentation? Hearing none, we'll go to public comments. Joe Ward.
Good evening for the third time. You're moving along well tonight. And this project is the second. You haven't reached the standard of the 80s of having 4 to 6 or 8. But this is a great infill to our industrial area. And if you think back over job generation back in the 80s and into the 90s, these types of facilities can hire tremendously wide age ranges. The oldest member on the board today and I could probably get a job there, and we certainly would see some young folks in both of these businesses. So it's great to see finally things come back. This is State Road 710, obviously Martin Luther King and 8th Street. But the signage has the same comments I made to the previous. I-95 needs to get some notoriety for Riviera Beach and not have CDEC restrict them to some monument sign which obstructs traffic visibilities. So pay attention to that before you go to council. The fire comments were not as significant, apparently, as the last project, but lots of this, and I'll talk about it under public comments, I think, after the fact, permitting issues have driven people out of the city, so we need to address that. Lastly, guess who owns the property to the east? Guess what looks the worst? The city utility district property. So this board, one of its charges is to make improvements to the city. And the applicant can't do anything about how badly we manage our lands, but there's no reason why the utility district can't clean this property up and make it look better than a junkyard.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments. Members, any last comments before we call the question? Any members choosing to comment? Any additional comments by staff, the applicant? Hearing none, is there a motion?
motion to approve the project application from the Port of Palm Beach Cold Storage with the conditions set by staff.
So moved. Moved by Mr. Canuti, second by Mrs. James. Mr. Velasquez. Mr. Velasquez, if you'll call the question.
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Julius Wiggum,
Yes.
Marie Davis,
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Michelle Bruce,
Yes.
Edward Canuti,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy.
Yes.
Unanimous voting, motion approved.
Thank you. Item number 8, general discussions, public comments. Gerald Ward.
Good evening, Gerald Ward, 2135 Broadway and 3930 North Ocean. Thank you very much.
Okay.
On the beach side for the latter. The actions you're going to take later on in the agenda end up removing one of the brightest lights that the board has had in the last couple of years. Your meeting tonight went very well, and I hope you take some time to thank the chair for his service. But more importantly, we need to generate more chairs. In other words, each of you that have sat there and not necessarily been an officer needs to jump in and take some effort to run this meeting and run the CDEC department. This is America with the constitutions of the people, by the people, and for the people. So you are the people's first line of defense. And I hope you do thank the chair, because I certainly think he has been a shining star for the Riviera Beach Planning Board this century. The second issue is something, and it's no different than I was at the Jupiter Inlet District meeting last night, and George Gentile, who was the presenter for the first project, was the chairman of that board. We collared the commissioner from the Port of Palm Beach and said, hey, I'm going to raise the issue because the port filed on the 8th of the month an application to expand their water side with additional slips at the port. It is a very poorly drafted application that went to the Department of Environmental Protection, and it probably will get changed and rejected significantly after I talked to some of the staff yesterday and today. But the city has the port still under its control pursuant to an interlocal agreement. So you need to make sure that CDEC doesn't bury it, and that actions are taken appropriately to review what they're doing, which is both upland and in the water. Lastly, I was very emphatic that we had 2 properties on state roads that needed signage, because signage is good for Riviera Beach. And the sign has to be big enough that you can read it at 60 miles an hour on 995 or 40 or so miles an hour on State Road 710. So we've got to pay more attention to notarizing the businesses and the city.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. No correspondence, planning and zoning board comments. And I have a couple. Number one, I did realize what Mr. Wiggum referenced, the minutes. Now that we have an official reporter here on staff, how do we go about correcting the minutes? Because at least on the, I guess the cover sheet of this, it doesn't indicate that he came after roll call. So what is the process, or is there something that we need to be concerned with?
Well, what staff be sure to do is make sure that our attendance roster is correct. And then pose that question to the company that does our minutes and and see if it's a simple correction they can do. I'm sure it's something that we can have modified without issue.
And I didn't look through to see if, obviously I think I might have overlooked it when he came and sat down at the dais, but I certainly want him to get credit. Now also, Mr. Ward referenced something that I kind of remember some time back about, the duties and responsibilities of the planning board. And sometimes I'm just concerned, where are we going with it? Because, we do have a duty, at least according to the Code of Ordinances. But, the capital budget, I want to know more about our role in not just coming to a meeting, looking at an application or having 5 days to review an application, but, being a little more involved. And I would hope that we can get some direction at least. I have not yet reapplied, but I do intend on reapplying to be a member. I think my term would end this month. But I would like to see more involvement other than just coming to a meeting perhaps maybe once or in some cases twice a month. But, I don't want to seem so bleak or pessimistic, but a lot of things don't come up until we bring it up. Like I know we've seen the whole entire S Avenue project begin, the Cunningham Park project begin, and the question was raised, was there any community development participation? According to the ordinances, the Planning and Zoning Board should offer information, or there was another instance where, these things just go by, abandonment of streets, changes in use of streets. I mean, according to our code, that information should come up. And, I used to hear Mr. Canuli say it, but a lot of times being on the board and people know that you're on the planning board, they have all these questions for you in the community, and some of them I don't even know. I'm almost embarrassed to say, I don't know. Oh, we don't do that. Or we should be doing it, but we don't do it. And, it's like, come on, we are now in 2015. I mean, it's not the 80s or the 70s. We should be more involved. We should take that proactive approach. I mean, at least I remember I was sworn. I take it that is still a requirement that you're sworn in. So we do have a duty, and I would hope that we can at least, going forward into a new, term of chair, whoever that may be, at least let's require more and try to be more involved with the process. That's all I have for now. Any other members? Corporate comments? Mrs.
Mr. Chairman.
Hold on 1 second, Mr. Wiggum. Let me get Ms. Davis first.
Well, you know what might help a little bit is that at the end on our agenda, Jeff, on our agenda, on the agenda, maybe maybe it'll be better to be on the agenda. The very last item would be action items from the previous month, so that we would know without reading through all of the minutes what we requested, and then that would enable us to know what the status was the next month. You know what I'm saying?
So a recap of the motions made by the board.
Just the action items.
Okay.
What action do we need to take? Maybe what action do you need to take? What did we request? As an example, this is just an example, not picking the word. We wanted you to write a letter to Ruth Jones to request that we be televised. So that's an action item. So that next month we'll know, well, then we can say, Jeff, what's the status? Or if you get hit by a car, we'll ask the next person, what's the status? Okay?
Which was the not picking.
But that's just an example.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand the question.
I think it would solve a lot because apart from you, I don't want you to get hit by a car, but I think it would solve a lot of, all of us, you get paid and we're volunteers and we're really busy with our own lives and businesses, and it would be helpful to have that little recap, and then we won't have to ask you the same question a dozen times 4 or 5 months down the line, because we'll always have that recap and we'll know that it was taken care of or it's still pending. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Colton, you're recognized.
Wiggum.
Oh, okay. I thought I seen you as well, but Mr. Wiggum, you're
Thank you,
recognized.
Mr. Chair. My comments are that I'm hoping that these three items that we had on the agenda tonight are beginning to be a good year for Riviera Beach to start rebuilding. Our city needs repairs all over. If you ride around the west side from Congress to Old Dixie, from Silver Beach Road to Blue Heron, you see a lot of empty homes. People are leaving. And while they're leaving, they're dissatisfied with some of the services that they're being given by the city. And I'm hoping that this planning and zoning board will be an example to the other boards that we're on the move, let them get on the move. Another thing I would like to say, we are volunteers. And we don't have anybody out there in that audience that listen to us tonight. Look out there. Now, the people being notified, I would like to see something in the news. If we got three items like we had tonight, I would like to see something in the newspaper advertising that we're having a planning and zoning board meeting. And you know something? I want to advertise this city. I want this administration to start talking to the city council and the other administration. Get me a cap. Get me a t-shirt so I can walk around the city. I'm not getting paid to be up here, but I want to be proud to say I'm on the planning and zoning board. So, give us a gift sometime. Let us know that you appreciate us. And that's all I have to say, Mr. Chair.
Chair.
Just 1 second, Mrs. James. Well, I concur with you, Mr. Wiggum. And, you know, this is like, you know, it's a fight. Struggle is progress. You know? You have to go through a struggle to see a little bit of progress, excuse me. So I would encourage you to stay in the fight, Mr. Wiggum. Mrs. James.
In reference to your previous comments about capital improvements coming through the city, the best way to look for that stuff is to attend the annual budget hearing meetings when they begin. That's probably usually around September. And that information is noticed on your notice of proposed taxes that's sent out by the property appraiser about the third week of August. So that's always a good place to look for those upcoming things when the city is planning their budget funds for the next year. So just point of reference, I'll put that out there for the board and for any other interested parties. I don't probably think those meetings are very well attended, but those meetings are very important because that's where the millage rates are decided, and you would see what the city is planning to do with their money year in advance, because that's why they hold the meetings, and you know you'll have a chance to put your input in. But those are my comments.
Thank you, Mrs. James.
I do have another comment.
Just a moment, Ms. Davis. Mr. Hamilton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. At the last meeting, I made a comment similar to, I guess, action that Ms. Davis was referring to about a FDOT project, State Road 710 improvement that appeared to omit a bus stop bench and bus stop location for basically people comfort. And hopefully we'll have a follow-up on that particular action item after reviewing with FDOT prior pictures that the city may have taken prior to their improvements. And get feedback automatically, hopefully without request.
Is that a question for staff, Mr. Hamilton?
That's a request of action of staff, correct?
Okay.
If I may, Chair McCoy, that was requested last meeting, and I haven't had the opportunity to follow through on that request, so I will do so prior to the next meeting.
Now, just so I understand, that's a request to find out about the bus stop shelter?
On page 56 of the minutes.
Right, but I guess my question is it to staff or is it to FDOT?
It is the staff to
inquire with FDOT?
Initially review, and usually the building and zoning would take pictures of error before any improvements are done. To confirm that the bus stop was there, to confirm what I'm saying. And if it was there, then the next step would be to contact FDOT to say, hey, you forgot to do something, and please make this correction. So they're going to confirm what I'm requesting. If the confirmation is made, then you're going to make the appropriate request that FDOT make the completion of that particular segment of the State Road 710 improvement.
Sure, thank you. That's it. Mrs. Davis.
For some reason, I forgot what I was. Hopefully, in the room, I remember it.
Mrs. Davis.
Yes, Ms. James made me think of something regarding the budget. Do you have are we planning and zoning budget? I mean, do we fall under community development? Are we part of your budget?
I don't know if there's a specific line item in community development's budget for just planning and zoning. So I don't know the answer to that question.
You know, I think it's part of our response. I think that the cornerstone of a successful city is sort of based on planning and zoning, and I think Florida statutes and our own ordinances, we have a lot of authority that we don't administer, and I believe that we're supposed to have a budget. Do you know what the budget is for community development?
I would have to look up the information we provided.
So how would we go about being an item? Budget?
Well, I don't know if it's a specific line item or if the function is incorporated within another subcategory. I don't know if that account is specifically within community developments or if it's more of a general fund for just advisory boards in general. So I'd have to dig a little deeper and see how that's specified within the budget.
Would you be kind enough to do that? Thanks.
Mr. Canuti?
Just a couple of comments. But tagging on to something that Mr. McCoy said, probably the biggest problem we've always had here in this board is that we approve things and comment on things, and they leave this room, and we don't really get any feedback after that. We don't know when it's going to council. We don't know what council did with it, whether they changed it, whether they approved it. One example is the coastal construction line that passed through here a couple of months ago. We had an amendment to it that said there will be no exceptions. And that was unanimously approved by this board. And I haven't seen a document that says that that's the way it was presented to City Council, and that's the way City Council is voting on. So I think that's something we need to know. But more importantly, I think we have to think about a process that's ongoing, that every item, like the 3 today, with a date of approval from us, when does it go to City Council, or does it get lost in some bureaucratic wasteland and never get to City Council? Good example of that is about 4 years ago we passed and spent a lot of time on modification for the resort hotel zoning. Okay, everybody agreed to it. We hashed it out over months, voted on it, and I think it's still someplace on Ruth Jones' desk. So I think if we could put a process, and I don't know whether it's something as simple as a spreadsheet that says, here are the items and here's where they are today. Because every one of us could lobby to get something happening if we knew where it was in the process. So, final comment is, some time ago there was a document kind of a lengthy one that outlined the duties and responsibilities of the Planning and Zoning Board. And I'm sure I probably still have it somewhere in my files, but I think it outlined the responsibilities by statute and the responsibilities of planning and zoning and what we are charged to do and can do. So I don't know if you could do a little homework and see if you can locate that. I'll certainly look for it too. But I think listening to the board, I think we could all use that as a refresher to say, here's what we can do.
Yeah, I believe the document you're referring to, when you probably first received it, was a hard copy document. However, we use MuniCode as the name of the website, which is an archival website where our code of ordinances are kept. So the board's duties and responsibilities are available online, so I can forward the link to that specific chapter and section to the board.
Okay, I think that'd be worthwhile. I have no other comments.
And it's actually in our code of ordinance. I was actually here taking a look, chapter 27 of the city code of ordinance for reference. And, I don't want to make it personal, but, it's definitely in there. And one of the major things, one of the things that stuck out to me was general powers, 2735, section 2735. The planning board shall have the power to, and I would all ask you to read that at your leisure. Any other comments?
Chair.
Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you. Last year, I guess I inquired of staff about possible training for board members, and I was curious if there might be anything on the horizon that would be coming up in the future. Or if you could look into that and get back to us, hopefully at the end of the next meeting.
Yeah, I think what worked well last time was the board's desire to participate within the specific conference. I think it was the Florida Planning and Zoning Association that held the conference. So if there's an additional conference that's coming up in the near future, definitely make the request to me, and I can provide the request and see if funding's available. And it seemed to work well in that manner previously, so I would suggest doing that again.
I think that's a great idea. Me personally, I would like more of an orientation, more of a workshop with the Planning and Zoning Board, so we can understand, administration. How do we go about carrying out Chapter 27 and Chapter 30 and Chapter 31 as our roles and duties? Because what good does it serve us to go out to a Florida Planning and Zoning Association conference? We're still fighting to get information on the Planning and Zoning Board. So really, how good is that? So that's what I would like to see. It just, why waste the money, really? I mean, it's good to know we can all read an article or a journal on best practices in the planning and urban and regional planning community, but I think understanding our roles is equally important. Mrs. Brooks?
Just a question. The Planning and Zoning Conference, doesn't it, it's in different locations every year? I think we just happened to have it in Palm Beach County last year.
I believe the locations throughout Florida are alternated each year.
Any other members? Hearing none, moving forward to project updates. Upcoming projects, board member terms.
I want to provide the board with an update specifically on the board member terms. As of right now, the agenda item is to appear in front of City Council on May 6th. It hasn't been finalized, but that's the directive that we're working towards currently. So May 6th, City Council is when P&Z board membership will be discussed once again. At this time, I have no other project updates or upcoming projects.
Now, can you clarify that? That's memberships, or is that reappointment applications? Because
one and the same.
And I want to.
Excuse me, sorry.
That doesn't really allow for a lot of time, and I'll tell you why. That shows how much the city really cares about its members. That was January. I think it was the second city council meeting in January. And it was really debated on the structure and organization of the Planning and Zoning Board. And my biggest concern was, how do they begin to attrition members off of the board without even having a conversation with us? Now, I think the date is the 23rd. That leaves, another 13 days. So, my term ends on, I guess, the 30th of this month, which is next Wednesday, I believe. So I need to put in the application. Perhaps my application will be in time to be on the board. But that's just how weak our process is. That's just the lack of information and the transparency in this process. I'm going to city council meeting. I'll be there. But, it's just like, man, what do? Let's table every project that comes before the city until we get some attention. Do we have to do that? I mean, it's just like no regard to our personal schedules, our sacrifices. I got a 9.5-month-old. She's at a babysitter right now. At least I would hope that, our council members would at least be considerate that, you know what? I don't even believe it's council members or whoever it is, the powers that be, even consider us. Because I felt a certain kind of way when I just hear through the grapevine that everybody from District 1 was going to be purged and we were going to start fresh. So at least have the conversation. And I think, that's the bare minimum that we should be included in it. And, that doesn't sit well with me. Because it says, oh yeah, thank you for your service. Bye-bye. So, I want to understand what exactly is going to go on. Because you said May 6th. Do I need to apply? Is it discussion of the reorganization of the board? Do we now consider those other applicants who didn't put in the application? Do we consider applicants that just sent a letter or an email? Who's responsible for sending that over to city council, to the city manager? Is it
for final preparation of the agenda item? Is that what?
Well, not even final. Initial. What's the process for that to be placed on the May 6th agenda? It had to start from some point.
It would come from community development. The agenda item would originate in community development.
Okay, so has there been a process that community development has developed at the direction of staff since the January meeting?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So what is going to happen on May 6th?
The city council would consider board membership.
That's it. Is there a policy being developed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Was there a policy? Was it even considered? Because the directive was clear. Because we still have holdover members. So was there even? You know what? I'll be there.
Sure.
You're recognized.
Thank you. You made the comment that, and I was at the January meeting when the P&Z membership was discussed. There was a director from council, I believe, Gagnon, and maybe I have the wrong council number, that procedures be developed, and I guess you're indicating that those procedures have not been finalized yet, but more than likely they will be ready by the 6th.
Again, staff will go back and review exactly what city council has requested. Prior to the item going in front of city council, it would be more than likely that whatever they had requested would be provided to them.
Do we get anything? Do we, kind of know where we are in it? Or just when we show up at a meeting and you're not welcome on the dais?
No additional information about that.
Here.
All right. Mrs. Brooks, you're recognized. Then Mr. Hamilton.
I just have a comment. And I'm sitting here and I heard a couple questions. One question goes back to a board member that said, asking about the signage. I mean, if they don't advertise, what's the fee? And we sit here on that board a couple years ago and we went through this time and time again. We came up with the ordinance about the fee. And this is just an example of, and not to pick on you, Mr. Colton, you wasn't aware of that. I mean, because you're a new member. And I'm just thinking about all the things that we've gone through. I mean, we've gone through a lot, and this board has really grown. And we've done a lot of things, and we get along. We're not yelling, we're not screaming. But it's just so simple things that we did that we think now are just simple, because I'm listening. It's like, oh yeah, it's 500. You know, we know that. We could just throw that out, and you bring someone else on, and it's almost like, and I'm one of the ones that's going out of, you know, my time may have passed, and that's okay if they want to move me on. But when I applied for this board, no one, I mean, District 1 has the most member, because I'm just going to say it, we care. No one from the other districts came forward, applied. I mean, we sitting here, once we had a big audience. When I was chair, I would say, you know, you all are here, we have openings, please apply, please apply. No one applied. Now, I don't know. It's just that, and I don't want to get upset about it or whatever, because it is, you know, if they, you know, get rid of us, that's their desire to do so. But I just wanted to go on record, because I really haven't said anything. I did apply. I sent an application in. But I will tell you, I'm going to come to that meeting as well. And if my application that I had to go through, that I provided, went through, completed the application, gave my bio, my resume, my experience, why I think I would make a board, and if I had to do that, I'm really going to say something if they accept someone just sending a letter in and say, I want to be a part, or somebody that, you know, just, as from what I understand, that, you know, they didn't complete the application because they misspelled their name. So I'm just going to be, I'm just going to attend, and I don't want to get annoyed about the fact or whatever, what happened, how I watched the meeting. I saw what happened. I listened. Why they called my name out, called me out personally, said Miss Brooks is one that's going to go, and that's fine. But I just wanted to just make everyone aware, and we give up a lot of time, and a lot of members that have been here don't show up, but the members that are here and dedicated, we show up. I'm sorry, we do, and I know there's no excuse, and people have, you know, there's problems, but it's really, I would like to know and go back and see how many times the absenteeism, really, because, I mean, everybody's going to be absent once in a while, but when you have 10, 20 meetings a year, or half a meeting you have a year, and you miss half, there's a problem. There's no way you can keep up with what's going on and what we're doing if you're missing that many meetings. And that's it. I'm done venting.
Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question is to the attorney. And I guess I have inquired about holdovers at our last meeting. This meeting, in addition to the holdover issue recourse, as you hear the various members express their concerns, by ordinance or by state statute, do members have any recourse?
And that would be recourse as far as whether how long they can be held. I guess I'm not quite understanding.
Okay, I'm anticipating various actions by the council at the May 6th meeting. Those actions apparently may or may not be received well by respective members, depending upon which ones those decisions affect. And I'm inquiring about, sort of like doing your homework, what would be the recourse of those members?
If those members are not reappointed, then they would no longer be on the board. You know, it's, you know, your ordinance, the commission appoints the board members. And so the commission has the right to appoint, you know, I guess who they feel is qualified. I'm not aware of any recourse that a board member would have if they are not reappointed.
Could they interrupt an existing term?
if there is an existing term that is not a holdover term, I would have to look at that, but normally that's not the case. I mean, the board would not interrupt, or if someone is in the middle of a term and the board and the commission would say, okay, we're cutting your term short unless the board member has failed to do some of the requirements in the code, or if they're absent or whatever, where the commission says, okay, now we're going to remove a board member and go through that process.
And my last question, because of the upcoming council meeting, do you think item 8D should be exercised at this time?
I did speak with Mr. Gagnon about that before the meeting, and it's entirely up to the board. I think it's the process is the process normally at this meeting that the board appoints a chair and vice chair, and so if I was the board, I think you can go forward with that process, and if there are changes that need to be made after, say, the commission makes their appointments, reappointments, whatever, then the board will have to address those changes, if any, might be necessary.
Thank you.
Any other members?
I just have one comment. I think the reason we find ourselves in this predicament is because we don't have rules and regulations, and we don't have qualifications to be on various boards. Maybe that's something that could be addressed for the future, whether you need an architect or you need a landscape something, some sort of certain qualifications within the community to serve on certain boards, not necessarily just this one, but maybe another, so that we don't have the problems. Other boards don't have the same problem we seem to be having at the moment. Just a thought.
Any other members? Hearing none, move forward to letter D. Nominations of chair and vice chair.
So at this point in time, I'd like to open up the floor for nominations for chairperson for the Planning and Zoning Board.
Floor is open.
May I, can I?
You recognize for a comment.
Can we actually decide not to elect the chair, co-chair at this time, and ask that we put it on the next item on the next agenda for the May agenda? Is that something we can do, or is that beyond our control?
It's possible. It wouldn't be staff's preference, but it's possible.
And the reason why I'm saying that, we have holdover members that we're holding over to, we keep going on and on. So what's the difference between selecting a chair and a co-chair and moving that to the next meeting if we still have holdover members? And that's just a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. The way that I personally envision the process was to move forward as if the board was going to be maintained as it currently is. So there's no way for staff to know or the board members to know what the council directive will ultimately be, but just procedurally that was the cleanest way to place it on the agenda.
Okay.
However, if the board chooses to potentially move it to the first action item at an upcoming Planning and Zoning Board meeting, that would be perfectly fine.
Okay, then I nominate.
Hold on, Ms. Brooks. I'm not going to open the floor for nominations since you already started the comments. Let's make sure that we got everything else cleared and out of the way before we open the floor. Any other members choosing to comment? Well, let me add this. That does make it very interesting that you suggested that. Now, in the event that myself or Mr. Canuti is not reappointed by the city council,
yes,
who then facilitates the meeting or starts the process to actually nominate a chair and vice chair?
I would open the meeting, similarly to if there was a night where both the chair and vice chair wasn't able to attend the meeting, so the board would nominate a chairperson for that meeting. So if there was no chairperson or vice chair nominated or available or existing, then that's the procedure that would move forward for the next meeting.
Okay, and I still want to answer some questions you're going to have first stab at nominations,
Okay, no
Ms.
problem.
Brooks. I just want to make sure I clarify a couple things that I looked at in statute. I'm not statute, excuse me, on the code of ordinance. And this may be a question for staff and Mr. Shutt. Is there anything that preempts us from nominating an alternate member as chair or vice chair? And I think alternate just, in my mind, represents voting designation.
Yeah, if I may. The code itself doesn't describe that as not being possible. However, procedurally, it could interfere with the meeting and how it's run, being that technically that person doesn't have rights as a member, an active member, unless there was an active member absent. So that could open up the board to some weird interpretation legally, and again, I'm not an attorney, but procedurally, I don't think that is something that's occurred elsewhere, and that's not something I would recommend now.
1 second, Mr. Wiggum. So, if that's true, then an alternate member, does the code refer to an alternate member? Does it describe their duties? Because, I just remember that we have to have 7 regular members and 2 alternates. Does the code actually describes when an alternate member can have voting rights or what rights they do have? Because I don't recall seeing that either.
I would have to reread the code.
This is bigger than all of us, Jeff. I'm really going to a point that, this needs to be revisited. This is not 1969 whenever that was originally adopted. I mean, we're running. It has to be over 40 years behind. But we're passing through businesses. We have new businesses that come here to our city. Oh, but our planning department is still operating in 1960s. Mr. Shutt, did you have...
Yes, Mr. Chair, just to kind of comment on that, I mean, the language as far as alternate members, I've never seen a code yet that kind of describes their duties separately. I think it kind of falls more under Robert's Rules of Order, or just the common interpretation of that is that if you have a member who is absent, then an alternate steps up and assumes the duties of the member. So therefore, there is no need to have a separate set of duties for alternate members because the alternate member will not have any duties until they, for that particular meeting, step up and assume the duties of a member.
Well, my thought was I might potentially wanted to nominate an alternate member, being that technically me, Mr. Canuti, Ms. Davis, and Mr. Wiggums come the 30th of this month are no longer members. We're holdover members, and that's provided if I apply. Now,
if I may, Mr. Chair, I think I would agree with Mr. Gagnon that procedurally that would create some issues. Just because you're assuming maybe that the alternate member will automatically be moved up to membership status, maybe, but if that doesn't happen, I think that procedurally there would be too many issues because you could potentially have a chair where while they might be present, they would not have any duties or rights to really run the meeting or take votes or do anything like that. So I would kind of caution the board that may not be a road that you want to go down at this time.
And just one last question. Our code also speaks of ex officio members, which I think for this board will be the mayor and the city manager. Can I nominate one of those individuals as chair?
If I may, Mr. Chair, no, I do not believe. I think for the simple fact if they're ex officio, they aren't going to be voting, they aren't going to have rights as members, so therefore my interpretation would be that only the regular members of the board can be nominated for chair or vice chair, one of the officer positions.
Thank you, Mr. Shutt. I withdraw the question. I just was curious. Mr. Wiggum.
Mr. Chair, the way this city council is going now, all of us might be going next month. It's no guarantee that any of us gonna be here, so why we gonna appoint a chairperson now? I would say let's wait and see what they're gonna do.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have Ms. Brooks waiting, but I will certainly allow you guys to comment. So, at least give her the first option of making any motion. So you're recognized for any comments.
I was going to go ahead and make the motion for Ms. Brooks, but since you...
Well, I don't know if that was her motion, so just hold on.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment. I don't think we should follow the example of the city council and not make decisions. So I think this board has been good in making decisions, so let's continue on making decisions.
Okay. Did I see any other individuals wishing to comment? Hearing none, Ms. Brooks, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, and I just want to make sure that we have openings right now for chair, correct? Nomination for chair, right? Okay, I will nominate our chair, Trodrick McCoy, if you would like. I would like to nominate you again for chair.
Second.
Well, at this point in time, just
It's just
procedurally, the
just
floor is
a
open for any
nomination.
nominations, so it doesn't need a second, just
Yep.
quite yet or at all, actually.
Any other
So
nomination?
are there any other motions by the board for chair? Hearing none, Mr. McCoy, Chairperson McCoy, would you accept that nomination?
I respectfully decline. I apologize, members, and I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I don't think I would want to at this point. I mean, I've been chair for I think over 2 years, and you know, I think there's great talent on this board. You know, and I don't claim to know everything, but I would love to allow someone else the opportunity. So thanks, Ms. Brooks, and thanks, Ms. James. So I respectfully decline. Ms. James, you're recognized.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone nominations of chair and co-chair to the next board meeting.
Your motion is not recognized. Your motion is, we can't take motions right now because the floor is still open. So let's make sure we resolve any other nominations before you make your motion, if that's all right. Any other nominations for chair?
Yes. I'm sorry. Then I would like to nominate Mr. Kennedy for chair. That's chair.
Any other nominations?
Vice Chair Canudi, would you accept the nomination as chairperson?
Yes, I will humbly accept that nomination.
Okay. Are there any other motions or potential appointments for chairperson at this time? Okay. Hearing none, we can do a roll call vote.
Ryan Colton,
Yes.
Julius Wiggum,
Yes.
Marie Davis,
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Lucia Bruce,
Yes.
Edward Kennedy,
Yes.
Tredrick McCoy.
Yes.
Unanimous voting. Chairperson nomination approved.
I just want to say congratulations to Mr. Canudi and a big thank you to Mr. McCoy because he has spent not just 1 year but 2 years plus some, as chairperson of this board. And being chairperson requires additional attention to detail, additional responsibility. You're tasked with running and organizing the meeting, so I think he deserves a.
Also, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank Mr. McCoy. I think you did a great job. And I think you've expanded everybody's thinking a little bit about what the board should be doing and can be doing. And I think we will now take it to the next level to really sort of feel where we should go, have to go, and then go there. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one before we go to vice chair nominations, if I could ask just one one question. Can I have a follow-up comment after we nominate a vice chair, if that's all right?
Sure. Yes.
Go ahead. We're on vice chair, right?
Yeah. Nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Brian Carlson as vice chair.
Is it open? I'm sorry. I would like to nominate Ms. Davis as vice chair.
I would like to nominate Miss Renee James.
I would like to nominate Ms. Brooks.
Can I have two nominations? Or
Is everyone of the four nominees willing to accept the nomination?
Yes.
At this time, I'll humbly decline.
Okay, Ms. Brooks?
I decline.
Okay. Ms. Davis?
I'll decline.
Okay, we have one nominee for vice chair, Ms. Brooks.
Would you like to do a roll call vote?
Yeah. Mr. Velasquez, call the roll.
If I can, just point of order, who was the one, I guess, who was the one remaining nominee? Ms. James.
No, Ms. Brooks.
Sorry. Okay.
Confusing there, didn't it?
Just for the record, which board member
Ms. Brooks.
nominated? No, but which
Mr.
board member nominated Ms. Brooks?
I
Mr.
do.
Canuti.
Thank you.
Brian Colton,
Yes.
Julius Wiggum,
Mr. Wiggum.
Yes,
yes, okay. Marie Davis,
Yes.
Renee James,
Yes.
Deshae Brooks,
Yes.
Edward Kennedy,
Yes.
Frederick McCoy.
yes.
Unanimous voting, nomination for vice chair approved.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just one last comment. I appreciate the time as chair. I think I learned a lot. It was a great experience. Thank you all. You know, God willing and City Council willing, I'll be here again next month, but you know, that remains to be seen. I would just share with our members this last comment. If these problems that we're experiencing that could potentially happen, I think we need to be vigilant and perhaps, you know, come out to the May 6th meeting if at all possible to let City Council know our position and why, you know, we should be in this kind of predicament. And if that doesn't work, again, I guess we should elect new council members. Thank you.
Yeah, that certainly is an alternative.
Chair.
But, yeah, go ahead. Ms. James?
A motion to adjourn.
Any other comments
Yes,
from?
please. I'm one of those holdovers, and in the event I'm not here next month, I really enjoyed this. It's been just a pleasure getting to know everyone and getting to know our city better, and thank you for the opportunity.
Ms. James?
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Fun meeting. And Mr. Canuti said, no, we're not going to be like the council. We're going to pass things. We're going to vote on stuff.